I feel like as a teacher, I've grown a lot. With each school I've taught at, each administrator that I've worked under has taught me resiliency, has taught me adaptability, like things that I'm doing in my classroom now has come about during all of those experiences. When my students leave me, I truly hope that they continue on with their thirst for knowledge. I try to plant those bits of that while they're absorbing the content that I am giving them. I hope that they continue to be lifelong learners. They continue to try to gain those experiences that are going to fulfill them in life. And hopefully remember my class for helping them get there. When I first got started, I didn't know what I wanted to do. My mom was my first inspiration to be an educator. She went back to college later in life to be an educator, and to see her still going through workshops, continuing to redo lesson plans, to reimagine her classroom really inspires me to never become complacent and just become a better teacher, to become a better educator. The moments that stick out to me are when former students really come back and let you know how their life is now. You knew you were doing what's in their best interest to see them with families. And thank you for those moments that you gave them that you didn't even realize.
When I first started teaching, I was worried about doing what the curriculum said, and I followed the book exactly as it said. And now I've learned to take the curriculum and then embed things into it to better meet my students' needs. And so I'm not afraid to bring in puppets or costumes or ways for the students to have hands-on interactive activities and have those student relationships. And I think about, how is this student best going to learn? Do I need to have this student drawing while this student is moving around? And I'm just much more flexible in that way. And I've learned to just take what's thrown at me and roll with it. I hope that when my students look back to their year in kindergarten with me, they think about the positive memories that we had together. I hope that they leave with a love of learning. That's always been my goal. I want my students to walk into my classroom and feel like they are walking into Disney World. So I hope that they think back to those things and they take that love of learning with them all throughout school and all throughout life. My family continues to inspire me and support me in teaching. My mom was the person who told me that I should be a kindergarten teacher even before I realized it. My dad loves to hear my stories. My sisters are always helping me with different things for my classroom, but also the relationships that I make with my students. And when I hear from their families that I was a positive impact on their child's life, that's the most motivating to me to continue putting in the extra effort and continue teaching and making a difference.
I'm a different teacher now than when I first started teaching 21 years ago. I was not confident. I really didn't know what I was doing, having criminal justice as my 4-year degree. It was a lot of failure, figure it out, start over. But over the years, I have grown to be more confident, put my own flair or my sparkle into my teaching, as well as just the wisdom and the knowledge of having the 21 years under my belt really helps me not only be successful in my classroom, but to be a good mentor to others. In my past years, I've had my students find me on social media and they're inviting me to their graduations. They're telling me, "You were my favorite teacher," and not because everything they needed to know they learned in kindergarten, but because I believed in them, I encouraged them, I loved them when they didn't feel loved. I supported them in areas that they didn't get support from home. I took care of their basic needs. To have those children think back and say, she cared about me, she loved me, she believed in me, that's the best. I think the future for my students beyond my classroom will be bright. They'll be lifelong learners. They'll want to continue learning and be inquisitive, showing up every day with a great attitude. I think they will take that from my classroom and carry it on for the rest of their schooling.
To be selected as R.K. Smith's Teacher of the Year, to me, it means the world, especially because it's the school that I started at as a first-year teacher. It's the school that really taught me what it means to be a teacher. My biggest fear when I started teaching was definitely being able to reach every child. I pride myself on being able to make connections with the students, and I love to build relationships with my students. I just try my best to be authentic in my classroom, make connections, be there for them, be consistent, and build those relationships. One moment that made an impact on me that I will always remember is when we were at middle school retreat a couple of years ago, and Mr. Blood, my principal, gave everybody cards that the students had wrote to us for Teacher Appreciation Week. I received a card from a student, and this student was just a child that had a lot of things going on at home. He required me to motivate him a lot. And the note said, "Miss White, thank you for not giving up on me." And to me, that meant the world, because sometimes you feel like, am I still gonna be able to get this child to succeed? Him saying that I never gave up on him, that made me very proud, and that's when I knew that I did make a difference in that child's life.
My story's a little different. I moved here from New Zealand when I was 9 years old, and my parents actually came to Louisiana in St. Charles Parish, in particular for the school system. To represent my school means a lot. Scheffner is a second home to me. I had the best teachers when I was there, and I truly feel like I was able to learn and grow socially and emotionally and academically. So what inspired me to teach was the teachers who taught me when I was growing up is a major factor. But I think ultimately it's my students, you know, it's their faces when they come in every day and they give you the biggest hug. It's the messages on the Google Meet over the weekend, "I can't wait to see you tomorrow." They're truly developing a love of what we do and what I teach them. One moment in my teaching career that truly stands out and made an impact was when the school system made the big change to have inclusion classrooms. That year, I probably learned more than I have learned in my teaching career. My children loved being there. They were so engaged and so excited to be part of their class. And those with exceptionalities can do just the same things that regular education students can do. So I think making that merge was really a truly life-changing experience to me. We are developing critical thinkers, no matter what, you know, a piece of paper may say their exceptionality is.
My biggest fear when I started teaching was that I wasn't going to be able to connect or reach the children that I was teaching. I started teaching as a second career. It was not my first career. And I started off cooking in New Orleans, and I was a chef with a Bachelor's of Science. And I volunteered in my daughter's kindergarten classroom. And I loved getting to interact with them in a small group, and when that light bulb just clicked. So I changed careers. So of course, when I started teaching, I was like, okay, well, I hope that I can reach them and connect with them on their level. I hope that my students take away the love and the passion that we have in the classroom for learning, and that they continue to want to grow and learn. I think that if the students develop a love for learning in first grade with me, it will carry them to the other grades, and that they will still have that curiosity and that drive to learn and succeed as it follows them all the way through K-12. There was this one student that I taught, you know, a home life situation at home. He repeated kindergarten. He didn't really have a positive outlook on school. And it took a lot of hard work and dedication to build that rapport with him. By the end of the year, he had grown. He loved school. He wanted to come to school every day, and he cried when he was promoted to second grade. But I was so lucky because I was able to still kind of be like his mentor. I kind of like checked in with him as needed to just make sure that his second grade year was just as great as his first grade.
It means the world to me to have the honor of representing J.B. Martin as my school's Teacher of the Year. But it's also very surreal, because I'm in such an amazing place with so many amazing and gifted and talented coworkers. It's almost like it's not real for me. I struggled in school when I was young, specifically with phonics. So from kindergarten and first grade, we started working to get me identified as having dyslexia, and once that happened, I was able to be placed into Project Read. And that's where I met Miss Norma Donaldson and Miss Kristen Clement. They made the connections for me that through dyslexia, I wasn't really able to make on my own. I wanted to be the kind of teacher that they were. I wanted to be that person for someone else who, it's a joy to come to my class. I'm gonna help you make the connections that maybe you weren't able to make before. I'm going to make learning fun for you, so much so that you forget some of the struggles you had. Things become easier and you just relax, and learning becomes that fun process that it was when you were little. One moment that had particular impact for me was when a student of mine read in class for the first time. He was a student who was selectively mute, mostly due to anxiety and some things that had happened to him in life. And it was brief. He was so proud, and he jumped into that reading without even hesitating. That was such a win for him. And my job as a teacher is to teach my students to celebrate those little wins, to build up their confidence. And in that moment, I knew that that student was there. His confidence was right there.
I have changed being a first-year teacher compared to a 24-year teacher because I had my own children. I was very strict, I find, with the children. The rule was the rule and that was it. Where after I had a child, I saw the child almost as my own child, and from the perspective of the parent and how they would want their child to be treated and empathized with or more compassion to. When my students look back at the experience that they had in my classroom, I hope they realize that their teacher is not just there for them as an educator, but also there for them as a caretaker. That we're not just that person that's delivering all this content to be shoved into your brain, but also we're there for any problems that arise, that we are there to take care of those too, even if it's on a personal level. The thing that inspires me to teach is my students. When they come to me in kindergarten at the beginning of the year, and they're so eager to learn. Everything that we talk about and I introduce to them, most of the time they're seeing it for the first time. And so it's like the light in their eyes that is really inspiring to me to even give it more and give it more until, the end of the year when they're ready to fly into first grade.
To represent Luling Elementary as this year's Teacher of the Year is a great honor. I love working alongside the colleagues there, and it's just an honor to even be considered someone that could represent the school well, represent what we represent, which is a loving and caring learning environment where every kid can be successful. And so to think that my teaching reflects that is just an amazing opportunity, and I'm grateful that I was chosen. My hope is that the future of my students' lives outside of the classroom would be filled with joy and major successes in life. Whether it is that they want to go on to be scientists, which would be amazing, and cure cancer, or if it's that they want to win the Heisman Trophy and then go on to win a Super Bowl. I want them to have a life that's fueled with the resources for them to achieve their dreams. When former students of mine look back on their time with me, what I hope that they'll take away is that they spent a year with a teacher who loved them and wanted nothing but the best for them. That they felt, even when they were pushed, that they know that it was pushing and it was supporting them. That even though things are hard, that power of yet, right? I can't do this yet. I'm not successful yet, but knowing that they left saying, okay, I'm gonna keep this growth mindset that we have. Things may look challenging in the beginning, but there's gotta be a way to get to the end result. And so I hope that they take that, and that I love them. And that I miss them. So I hope they take those things as well.
The people that inspired me to teach were teachers that I had had. Because when I was a student, like in elementary, I struggled in math until I got to 8th grade. And in 8th grade, I had a math teacher and it all clicked. And I realized if you had that right teacher, then the world just opens up. I went to college, I had a calculus teacher. he approached me. They needed calculus tutors. They gave me a little classroom with a little board, and the feeling of helping someone understand something that they didn't understand, in that moment, it was just awesome. When my students look back, I hope they remember that I provided a non-threatening environment for them, because I want them to feel free to learn and make mistakes and learn from their mistakes. And I want them to always feel comfortable getting in touch with me if they have questions. Moments that stand out in my mind. One of them would be, I was teaching in performance-based at the time. It was my first year. And I had a student that had taken Algebra 1 3 times. And I helped him through it. And at graduation, he ran across the room, picked me up, he spun me around, and he said, I would have never passed algebra if it hadn't been for you. And I mean, it gives me goosebumps to this day.
Growing up, school was always a safe place for me. It's where I felt the most like me. So I think the people who inspire me the most to be a teacher and to come to school with, a smile on my face every single day are the students that I teach. To end the school year and know that they met their goals and they're going off to kindergarten, it's just such an amazing feeling, and they inspire me to just keep going. For some of my students, I'm their first teacher ever. So I hope that when they look back on this experience, they remember that there was this caring person who took care of them socially, emotionally, academically. No matter what they needed, I was there to help them with that. I had a student who had extreme separation anxiety at the beginning of the school year, and the mother was just heartbroken every single day to have to say goodbye. And then by halfway through the school year, he was so excited to come to school, so happy to come to school. She was in tears, she gives me a big hug, and she just told me how thankful she was for me. And I think that's when I realized the impact that East Bank Head Start has not only on children, but they take care of the whole family. And it's one of the reasons why I love working there.
I got inspired to teach early on in my educational career. The elementary teachers that I had just had a love for learning and a love for children that inspired me to go down that path to be a teacher. And I think now just the children that I face every day just inspires me to be a better teacher each and every day, just to continue to learn. And now, moving forward, I'm a grandmother now, so my grandchild is continuing to inspire me to teach and to be the best that I can each and every day. I am a different teacher now than when I first started teaching, because when I first started teaching children, I taught content and I didn't teach children. So I learned through the years that I have to build a relationship with the child, foster that relationship, and teach the child the content and not just worrying about teaching math, science, or social studies. One moment that sticks out to me in my educational career is I had a student in 4th grade who was not able to move on. He repeated 4th grade with me, and then I just watched him blossom that 2nd, 4th grade year. For the first year, he felt unsuccessful, but the second time around, he just flourished and he grasped the content, and he was just phenomenal. He was always so thankful and just so appreciative of having that opportunity to show success and be successful.
I am a different teacher now because I find that I'm a lot nicer. I had, unfortunately, the reputation of being the mean teacher because I was just so strict and so regimented. At one point, the kids were afraid to be wrong because they didn't want to be wrong in Ms. Markey's class. So then I'm not that person anymore, and I'm glad that I've grown with a lot of the training that I've gone through. It's taken me to a point of these are little people, just treat them like little people, not students who are going to need to make a mastery at the end of the year. Like, they're going to do that if you treat them like the individuals that they want to be treated and respected as. My biggest fear when I started teaching is that I would not get through to kids. 13 years later, I think that I'm at the point where I'm very confident in what I do. I'm very confident in my students' abilities to utilize what we're doing in class and take it to not only that academic level, but apply it to their lives holistically. My greatest inspiration has been my cousin, Miss Nicole LaBeouf. I got to see her career just go from one step to the next step to the next step, from being a substitute teacher to being a certified teacher to being an administrator, and then being the principal at R.K. Smith Middle School, and how proud we were of her as a family and how proud I was of her as an African American woman looking up to another African American woman and seeing that if she can do it, then I can do it.
My biggest fear when I started teaching was knowing that I am the one who has to shape all of these students and mold them into something, especially in kindergarten. Am I setting the path for them to be successful in their life? And having my children come back to me year after year saying that kindergarten was the best experience that they had definitely made my fear turn into something more positive. It was more of a strength than a fear after all. The future for my students is definitely bright. They all just try so hard, and I know once they leave my classroom that they're all gonna do wonderful things. I hope that they look back one day and they say, oh, Miss Dufour, she was one of my favorite teachers. That's always something that I strive for, is just for them to always remember the experiences that they had in kindergarten. I know when I look back, my kindergarten teacher is the one teacher that I remember, and she made such a huge impact on me, so I'm hoping that I'm the same way for my kids. When my students look back, I hope that they always remember how much I love them and how much I still do, how much that I care about them and that I want them to always be successful, and no matter what grade they're in, where they are now, I will always be there for them.
When my students look back, I hope that they remember that I was their #1 fan, that I believed in them even when they didn't always believe in themselves. I hope that they remember the fun that we had, because learning should be fun, and I try to make it fun every day. And I hope that they remember that Miss Emo always told them to persevere. When things get tough, they're gonna keep on trying. One moment that stood out in my teaching career that made an impact was a few years ago. I taught a student, and she came to me with this thought that she couldn't do math. And I wanted to instill in her the confidence that she could do math. So we worked together, each day, whether small group or one-on-one instruction, and slowly but surely her math grades started improving. And then it was one particular math test. We were in the third 9 weeks. She made a grade that I knew she was gonna be very proud of. And I remember calling her over to my back table and showing her her test. And I remember her saying, Miss Emo, I can do math, I can do math. And she ran around my table and she gave me a tight hug, and that moment will stick out with me forever because I wanted her to know that she could do math. The future of my students beyond my classroom is limitless. I want them to strive whatever career they want to be, no matter what that career path is. I want them to love what they do, and I want them to continue learning for life. I want them to, no matter what they do, continue to improve, continue to be better, and be whatever they want to be, because I believe in them and I know that they're all destined for greatness, every single one of them.
To represent Hearst as Teacher of the Year is an absolute honor. We have such a strong team of mentors and administrators and teachers. To be chosen as their Teacher of the Year just shows how much faith they have in me as a teacher. Letting my students down was absolutely my biggest fear when I started teaching. I know how important it is to have a strong mentor and a strong teacher growing up. Reflecting is super important as an educator, not only reflecting on your lesson as a whole, but as you go throughout the day. Are you giving your students what they need? If it didn't go well, being open-minded to change it up a little bit. Teaching just can't be a script. You've got to go based off of what your students need, and I've definitely grown that way throughout my teaching career. When my students move on, I hope they remember that I cared about them. Yes, their academics are important, but nurturing that whole child, teaching that whole child is what really matters. I'm trying to teach them to have grit, to be self-motivating, to take the baby steps for success. So a moment that has definitely stood out to me and that I made an impact with another student was a few years ago. I had a student who lost her mom. I lost my mom at a young age as well. So being able to support her, to be that listening ear, as well as that strong person she needed in her life at that moment, just really hit home for me and helped me to understand again and validate that we are so much more than teachers. We are family members, we are counselors, we are just helpful hands just for them to be successful.